We're live.
And I know, Michelle, you're saying how cold it is, and it's just interesting about how cold it is in Tucson, that far south, and because what elevation is Tucson at?
Oh gosh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
It's
but
45 degrees right now.
Yeah, that's cold.
And yeah, and we're surrounded by mountains.
Yeah. hmm And perhaps that's what brings the cold in the mountains, when the air gets through the mountains and kind of chills. Chills.
Yeah, I heard them say this morning that it was unseasonably cool, but I'm enjoying it, and I like it because once summer sets in, there is no turning back. And I'm telling you right now, there is nothing like a summer in Tucson, Arizona, or Phoenix, even worse, because Phoenix is hotter. It's brutal.
Mhm.
And people think I don't like summertime, and people think that's strange because I live in Tucson, because most of our days are warm, and in the summer, like I said, it's really hot. So
It's hot.
I just try to stay cool, and when it's cool like this and the weather and it's unseasonably cool, I don't complain about it.
I'm the same way. I'm in LA, so like we've had so much rain lately. I'm like, I'm actually enjoying this. I can finally wear some winter clothes that just sit in the closet gathering dust,
Yes.
buy boots and pretend that there's a real winter here. So I'm with you on that. I had some friends who lived in LA as well, and they moved to Arizona. They didn't think they didn't think about the summer. And they ended up buying a place back in LA, and now they spending their winters in Arizona because it's a little cooler. And then the summers they're going to do here because they were like, it's crazy hot. They couldn't handle it. So I was like, well, it's one way to do it.
Yeah, it's a beast. It really is. Me and my coworker, we joke that the window of time for us to wear our boots is getting shorter and shorter each year.
Love it.
So yeah. But you also, like I said, there's so many good things about living here too.
Yeah.
We don't have all the crazy traffic. It's a relatively peaceful place to live. And myself being here as long as I have so many connections and know so many people, and like I said, have tons of family. I really like it. I always thought that I would eventually want to move somewhere else, but I don't think I do. And I don't think I do well being away from my family.
Oh yeah, because it sounds like you're pretty tight knit, like 9 brothers and sisters. That's
yes, very tight knit. Yeah, we all live here in Tucson with the exception of one of my siblings. She's in Phoenix.
Okay, so she didn't go too far away.
Nope, and she comes down often. It's just, it's like 150 miles away. So
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I feel like over the past few years, there's also been a lot of entrepreneurial events and conferences that are now happening, kind of like Scottsdale, Phoenix. So you're kind of like right where, all the entrepreneurs are and where all the events seem to be happening. So
yeah, and right now we have the gem show going on here. It's an annual event that happens here, and there are sellers who come from all over the world. It's a huge event, and it goes on for about 2 weeks, I believe it is. Takes place mostly downtown and different places throughout Tucson, but mostly in the downtown area. And they're here selling their wares from all over the world. You can buy jewelry, stones, one-of-a-kind pieces. Giant, like fossil-like rocks that yeah, wow. You can find any and everything.
That is awesome. I need to check this out because I'm all about the unique pieces that no one else has.
Oh.
Yeah. So when people ask like, "Oh, where'd you get it?" You're like, "Well, they only made one of them." So
yep. The gem show is definitely the place to go if you want something one of a kind. Yeah.
That sounds great. Hey, Howard.
Hey, Howard.
Hey there. Hi there.
Good morning, Howard. Well, good morning. Good morning for me in Tucson.
Well, it's about midday for me here in New York right now, 12 o'clock.
Yep.
So Howard has a lot of expertise in larger companies and systems and so forth. So it's great to have him on here, Michele.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, we got 4 more minutes till we start, so we're just getting everybody in. For our listeners that are joining in right now, we're just going to start in about 4 minutes when we get going. But so what have you been up to, Jules?
Me? I was just traveling last week. I just got back from Houston. So I was narrating out there for the car show. So that was fun. But yeah, I'm glad my friend actually went to Dallas because she was like transferring over to Madrid, and she's now stuck in Dallas because of the snow they're having. So I'm glad I was able to get out of Houston. It had like decent weather. So yeah, that was my main thing, just recovering from the travel, because I feel like it gets harder to travel as you get older, you know. It's yeah, I need like a day to adjust and sleep and get back on my diet and my workouts. So
Travel will do that.
Yeah, traveling's not fun anymore.
No, it used to be so glamorous, but yeah, I used to really enjoy it, but now I'm just like, I'd be one of those people getting there ridiculously early, and now with now that I have pre-check, I'm like, I just show up with my carry-on with enough time to board the plane, and that's it. Like the less time, the better. Unless it's the lounge. If there's a good lounge, then I'll show up early. But yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you see any new cool cars at the car show?
I was busy working, so I didn't really walk around too much. And I mean, most of them are going to be, I believe, in Chicago. They're unveiling a lot of cool stuff there, and then in New York as well. New York's always a big one for unveilings, and because they get all the media and they have press days and everything. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff I haven't seen before. But yeah, I think Chicago, they're going to be unveiling quite a bit, which is, I think, next week or the week after.
Yeah, interesting thing. I mean, I know there's a lot of those electric vehicles that are coming out, and they're pretty cool. But I was listening to an economist the other day was saying that electric vehicles should be really good for the environment in the future, but now they're not so much great for the environment because of all we have to go mine and get all the special resources to build the batteries and just the different places we have to get those components from. He was saying it takes about you have to drive the vehicle for about 200,000 miles before it breaks even from an environmental standpoint with cheaper gasoline engines. So or like the economy in gasoline engines, which is a lot, So So that was a kind of a shocking statistic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is shocking.
Isn't really out there because they're definitely pushing the electric. So you see a lot of it. It's definitely happening.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is not really there yet because you hear a lot of people like, but I want to go across country, and I'm like, well, for now you can only do that in a Tesla. So
right.
It's just a lot of stops. It's like stop
and then charge
a video game on the dashboard.
Sumit's joined us as well. Yay. Hey, Sumit.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can get things kicked off here.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the People Strategy Forum. Great to have you here. My name is Jules. For those of us that are returning, welcome back. We're really happy that you're here with us for another round, another session. But if this is maybe your first time here, don't worry. I will explain everything that goes on here so that you're familiar and feel comfortable. But today we are going to be covering the topic of coaching with positive confrontations with Michele Stewart. So I'll introduce her in just a moment. My name is Jules, so I will be introducing our expert panel of hosts as well as our guest speaker. And I'm also going to be hanging out in the chat today. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, we love to hear it. Don't be shy. Write it into the chat and we'll definitely make sure we answer as many questions as we can. But we do also stream this to other platforms. So if you are watching on some other different type of platform like Facebook, LinkedIn, you can still write the questions in there because we always go back and we check them and we get those questions answered. And maybe you can't watch the live stream, that's okay too. We also are in podcast form, so you can put your AirPods in and listen to us that way as well. Now, like I said, if you are new here, what we do at the People Strategy Forum, our goal really is to engage, energize, and elevate your employees and also your company. So the way that we do that is we show up every week. We have an awesome panel of hosts who have expertise in many areas, and we discuss different topics each and every week. So you're sure to come away with something awesome and valuable and for free. That's the best price. And we also archive everything on the YouTube channel as well. So you can check out the YouTube channel, listen to everything, catch up, but also I encourage you to take notes now. So I'm going to introduce everyone else that we have here today. We're missing a couple people, but that's all right. We still have a nice full panel today. We have Howard, who works with CompTeam. He's a compensation advisor, has years and years of experience, and he knows exactly how to leverage technology and software to help organizations improve their compensation programs. We also have Sumit, who is a people strategist and consultant, and he's helped many organizations really implement new and modern HR practices. And we also have Sam. So Sam is the leader over at CompTeam. He is the founder and CEO, and he is a certified compensation consultant. So all things compensation and talent initiatives he definitely knows about. And he also is the person who brings the forum together every week as well. So that brings me to our special guest speaker, Michele Stewart. So we're very excited to have her here. She has years and years of experience. She started working in human resources. She's an HR consultant, but also a certified life coach. She is also the founder of Indala Consulting, which we found out because I was like, that's an interesting word. And it's actually a combination of her two children's names put together, India and Elijah. So if you're wondering, like I was, that's where that name comes from, which is very cool. And she also, so she runs Indala Consulting. She does one-on-one coaching. She helps just about anybody that needs help. So she helps college students, executives, basically anyone that wants to figure out what's stopping them from reaching their goals. So again, any questions for Michele or our panel, put them in the chat. And Michele, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We're really glad you could make some time for us.
Thank you for having me, Jules. I'm excited to be here.
So Michele, tell us a little bit about how you started out. I mean, what gave you passion in this area to help people?
Well, the passion actually came through the work that I've been doing for several years in human resources. I always tell people human resources is a field I love, and it's my second career and my final career. I've been passionate about helping people achieve their goals for a long time. And like as I was saying, being able to help people through my work has kind of trickled over into what is now Indala Consulting. And my goal is to empower people, give them the tools that they need to feel that they're successful. And I think that it is important for people to create their own definitions of what success is, because there's so many things out there, to some people it's the cars, the money, the house, and all of those things. But I think it goes deeper than that. And I'm here to help people discover what their goals are, what they want to achieve. And I want to help them get there and be successful in achieving that.
I imagine a lot of times in your consulting practice, you talk to individuals that are focused on one thing, and I imagine, you know, what's really important to them may be something else, and they don't even realize it. So you help them come to that fruition.
Absolutely, absolutely. That usually comes through conversation. I usually start with my clients with a 15 to 20-minute consultation by asking them a series of questions. And usually by the end of that consultation, what they actually said they wanted is very different than what they want to work on as far as entering into a coachee relationship with me. So and that comes, like I said, through questioning to help them figure out what that is that they want to achieve and what they need my support and my help with.
And I imagine a lot of learning to ask the right questions is quite a skill set, and I imagine that's where you've got a lot of that experience from your past HR experience and employee relations. Is that right?
It really is, yes. Asking the right questions will give you the information you need. My first career was as a journalist. I was a reporter, so I took the skill set that I learned from that and transferred those skills over into HR, and that has continued. I've been able to continually build upon that as I have moved throughout my career from from being a recruiter and also into moving into employee relations. So it's been very beneficial.
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that process. And so, a lot of times when we meet new people, it's very difficult to get them to open up to speak their mind. I mean, there's a trust that needs to happen. And so when you're talking to people, especially when they've come from when we're talking about confrontation, they're in a period where they're when we have a disagreement with a colleague or our manager, we seem to get narrowed, that narrowed focus, and sometimes we lose that higher level of thinking. And so how do you break through with these people to have them understand the big picture and have them feel like they can reach out and talk to you candidly?
I think that you have to be authentic in whatever you're doing, not just for me as a coach, but for leaders as leaders to employees. You have to come across and be authentic in whatever it is you're doing, because when you're not authentic, people can see that. They know that you're not real. They know that you're not being completely authentic, and they are not going to be open up to you, and they're not going to share their innermost dreams and struggles and challenges. Pouring those things out to somebody that you just met or don't have a connection with is difficult. So in order to be able to break through that and get somebody to open up to you and share those things and get to that next level so you can actually work with them and make some progress, you have to be real, you have to be authentic. Anything else won't work.
And right now there just seems to be so much fear among employees. I mean, right now people are suffering layoffs and so forth. And so just opening up and being real, I guess, in a situation where you're worried about any kind of vulnerability that I might display could count against me in the future. And so is there, in creating that safe place to talk, is being authentic, of course, is a great way, but what are some other ways that we can encourage people to open up?
Well, I think you made a good point. People can be afraid to be themselves. It can be difficult to find that safe place to open up, especially with all of the things that are going on in the workplace right now, like you said, the layoffs. But I think that you do yourself a disservice when you're not open and honest, for one. Secondly, if you are a leader and you have people who report to you who don't feel like they can be 100% themselves and be safe with you, that's a breakdown, and it doesn't foster that respect, that trust that you need to be able to have those connections, which will lead to those coaching conversations or those coaching confrontations that you have to have at some point, you know, as a leader, you have to be able to foster that with your employee to get there. So yeah, those are the things that you have to keep in mind, have to do that.
Yes. And Samantha, I know that you've been closely monitoring the market, seeing what leaders are doing as far as having critical conversations right now. How are a lot of leaders getting this wrong?
Well, you know, that's a good question, Sam. And, you know, I'll tell you, one of the ways that they're getting it wrong is that they're not doing it. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for about 20 years, and I have so many leaders, you know, still who come to me to this day who refuse to have these difficult conversations with their employees for fear that they're not going to know what to say, for fear that they are not sure how the person is going to react. And it's like anything else. You have to do it. If you want to be good at something, you have to do it. You have to practice it. And I like to give my my leaders tools to help them get through and be able to have those tough conversations. And one of the things that I always tell them to do from the start, the first thing you have to do is start with heart. I know that can sound a little sappy to some people, but you have to start with begin with the end in mind. What is it that you want to achieve? What is your end goal here when you have this conversation with the employee? Is it that you want them to start coming in on time? Is it that you need them to deliver reports to you, you know, on the deadline that's given to them each month? Start with what it is that you are what your goal is, what the end goal is. And you have to focus on what the result is. Now, the next thing is that people will tend to back down again, like I was saying earlier, because they are afraid how the person is going to react. But I think the best way to counter that is when you're having that tough conversation, when you've started with that employee and you're going in and you're being authentic and you're being real, is for you to state what your intentions are up front. There is nothing worse than for a leader to bring an employee in and sit there and ramble for about 10 minutes because they're nervous or they're, you know, the nervous chitter chatter. And the employee is sitting there wondering, like, why am I here? What is going on? You need to go in, you need to state what your intentions are up front. And so that employee can at least have an idea of what the meeting is about, and then tell them what it is, you know, move through the conversation and then start to make it personal. And those are just two of the tools that I have, and I'll continue on, but I want to see if you have further questions about stating your intentions up front.
I have a question, because, you know, sometimes you want to do it on a more, and maybe it's incorrect, on an informal basis, and you know, grab someone and say, you know, let's grab coffee together, grab lunch together, and have that discussion. So would you say that's not the ideal approach?
No, I would say that is an ideal approach.
Okay.
It breaks down the confrontation. It makes it easier. It makes it more personable and not as a, you know, not more. I was telling Sam earlier, people tend to view confrontation as negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the way you present it. A confrontation doesn't have to be negative. And the start of it not being negative is doing exactly what you just said, Howard, inviting them to meet me in the cafeteria. Let's walk down, let's have a coffee. That breaks down, that disarms the employee.
Mm-hmm.
and helps them be more receptive to what it is you're saying. And, you know, because there's a difference between let's walk down and get a coffee together and I need you in my office in 5 minutes.
Right.
The response is totally different.
Agree.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I like that disarming approach that you suggested. Perfect.
And just to add, I find if leaders have the easy conversations on a more regular basis, the difficult ones become much easier, because suddenly people's defenses don't go up when a leader says, hey, let's chat, even if it's over coffee, because you've been here for 2 years, they've never really had coffee with you. And now you hear of layoffs all around, you hear of complete destruction and mayhem. And you're like, uh-oh, you want to talk to me. Something's not right. And if you create that culture of open dialogue on a regular basis, you wouldn't really have that problem, is what I see. And it's a big challenge in my part of the world where feedback is still largely related to a post-mortem analysis of what went wrong. So when somebody says, hey, I've got some feedback for you, it doesn't really mean dialogue, it means criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And you kind of, with your comment, I'm sorry, submit,
Sumit, yeah.
your, that brings me to one of the things that I was actually gonna mention later down the line. But when you are giving, when you're having those tough conversations, or when you're just simply, like you said, giving feedback to an employee, the first time this employee hears about this feedback should not be when you sit down to have their annual review with them. You should be having conversations with your people throughout the year. If the first time I hear that I'm not meeting expectations is during my annual evaluation, you have as the leader, you failed me.
Absolutely.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there has to be, that you have to engage actively and continuously engage with your employees. The next step that I like to, that I tell my leaders to go into is to making it personal without making it personal. And when you do that, you're focusing strictly on the performance or the behavior, the issue, not making it personal, not talking about them as a person. You are focusing on the behavior. The behavior, for example, when you are late with those reports, I'm not able to get those to them in time and it delays the meeting. When you don't show up on time, this is what happens, the cause and the effect. So focusing on the behavior, focusing specifically on what the fallout from that behavior is, that's what should be the focus. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, I was reading an interesting line this morning, which made a lot of sense to me, which was, say what you mean, don't say it mean.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
One of the things that are going on right now is just that there's, I mean, of course, we heard this expressed earlier as quiet quitting, but I think that we're finding that we're in a period where a lot of employees are experiencing disengagement, and I think that, like you mentioned, you were talking about not showing up to work on time, maybe not having quality standards up. There's a lot of things that are going on like that in multiple industries. Have you heard about or experienced that with your clients?
Actually, with my clients, no, I have read a lot about the quiet quitting, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But thus far, I haven't had any of them come to me with anything like that. It's usually conflict. It usually involves conflict that they're having with their bosses or with other coworkers.
Yes. So one of the things that I've been hearing is just and with some of that disengagement that some leaders are experiencing, what I often say is that it's important to really reiterate the vision of the organization. So many times leaders are expecting people to perform at certain levels, and some of those people are not experiencing or don't understand what poor quality, what happens if they do a poor job, what happens, that, like you were talking about consequences there. And if a company comes out and they're saying, this is our overall vision of what we're trying to achieve for our customers, the people that society as a whole, then as they start developing a relationship with that vision overall, if it's meaningful to them, then it naturally becomes more engaging. What are your thoughts on that?
Was that for me, Sam?
Oh yeah. What do you think about?
I'm so sorry.
No, that's all right. So when you're thinking about when you're talking to your leaders and when you're expressing the importance of stating what the mission and vision is of the organization and how that drives behavior,
Mhm.
is there do you find a close connection? Does that work for your people?
Yeah, I think that it's important always to go back to the mission and the vision of the organization. That's what drive, like you were saying, that's what drives everything. And sometimes I, it's important that leaders understand that not everybody you have reporting to you is going to buy into the mission and the vision of the organization. And that's when you have to start to assess whether or not that person is a fit and whether we should retain that person. Unfortunately, those, that's what happens in business, but you always have to make sure that they are, in line with the mission of the organization because let's face it, not everybody is always a fit. So absolutely, absolutely.
And sometimes I find that these things change over time. It's like, you might have a direction in your business for instance, we experienced this during the pandemic where, people were used to meeting with people face to face. And then when we shift to a remote environment, some people felt disconnected, and that was not what they wanted out of their job. They wanted that personal interaction. And so the objectives kind of changed there. And so I understand that there's times when people become disengaged because this is no longer the job that they signed up for, right? But what is the responsibility of leaders to help them take that conscientious next step to finding something that is a right fit?
That's a good question. Sometimes you have to have, again, those difficult conversations. You have to pull the employee in and find out, what it is they need and how you can support them. And one of the questions that I always encourage leaders to ask of their employees is, how can I best support you? Find out what it is they need. I mean, that transition from working in the office to working at home, that was a struggle for a lot of people, myself included. I'm a very personable person. I like FaceTime. I like connecting with people. So making that transition, that can be a struggle. So that just goes back to that connection I was talking about, checking in with your people, seeing what it is you can do to support them, getting them the help they need, utilizing the resources that are available in the company. Sometimes the EAP is underutilized, the employee assistance program, and people need to remember that that's a resource that they can point, their employees to. And I actually refer employees to the, people to the employee assistance program all of the time, because there's a myriad of issues that they are able to help with and support with. Being in the field, sometimes people will bring things to me that are more suited for a counselor or a therapist, and I have to remind them that that's not what I do. But here I can direct you to somebody who can help you. So you don't always have to have all of the answers, but you can seek out the resources available to help support them and ask those questions to point them to the direction that they need to be in.
Yes, mental health has been such a big issue with organizations, and the EAP programs, as they're called in the United States, are very important to helping people get back on track. It's been an underutilized benefit for a long time. But Sumit, in periods of time when you've experienced, right now we're in a phase where sometimes people are not going to get back on track because there has been a shift, and we need to ask them to leave the organization. What is your recommendation, Smith, about making sure that that's a more of a positive experience, and leaders can do that correctly? What do you think there?
So just to understand correctly, are you talking about getting people to leave the organization on a positive note?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, there's lots of layoffs that are going on right now, and people are seeing this done through Zoom meetings or chat or email and so forth. And of course that is a very negative experience overall. But I think that there's a way that we can do this positively in a way that we're humanizing that person, appreciating what they've done for us in the past, and then also setting them up for success and finding a next role that's right for them. What do you think?
I mean, I think before layoffs became such a common occurrence and a um, daily used word, uh, maybe sometime a little more than a decade ago, there were companies in the tech space that conducted layoffs with outplacement support. And this is when I think they cared enough about the employer brand, when um, saying we laid people off it wasn't really disguised under a lot of strategy talk and strategic restructuring of the operating paradigm and fancy complicated language like that. But over time, as technologies become more frequent, as layoffs have become a more, for want of a better word, popular um, phenomenon, I think that humane conversation has gone away. And I remember um, almost 2 decades ago when I had to um, lay people off. Um, I was barely out of college, and these people were, some of them they were almost a generation older than I was, and I knew some of them had tough financial circumstances. The first time I could do it, so I actually ran um, crying from the room where I was supposed to do this, and my boss ripped into me later. So he handled the conversation then, but he ripped into me later saying, um, this is not about you, this is about them. You cannot deny people the right to hear it from the person who was the most closely responsible for their performance, which was you. And so you failed. And next time, let's hope this kind of a scenario never arises. But if it does, I would expect you to step up and take responsibility. And I mean, I've held on to that belief, and I think no matter how much technology you have access to, no matter um, what industry you're from, it's very easy to have a conversation. And I mean, I did a back of the envelope kind of a calculation a few days ago based on the hiring numbers at any of the large tech firms. They they hire about 20,000 people a year, and they've been doing that for the last 5 or 6 years, um, which translates into, as per my calculations, about an average of 500 interviews a day, assuming um, you're interviewing multiple people for the same role. If you're doing 500 interviews a day, you're having that many conversations, right? So even if you're laying 10,000 people off, you can always phase that out and have those conversations. So hiding behind the excuse saying it's impossible to talk to so many people at once, I think that's plain wrong. Companies which cite data security fears and say we are afraid that somebody will cause harm to the organization if we don't take away access. Technically, I mean, your tech firms, after all, you can take away access during the conversation also. So while somebody is chatting with those people, you can revoke their access to organizational systems. So I think it's more about intent than about systems.
Yeah, and I also think, I mean, just it's trust. I mean, it often when we're if we feel like somebody's going to do harm to the organization after having a difficult conversation with them, I think that it's already gone too far. You know, that management have lost, they've lost face and with that employee, and it should have been, things have gone too far. So I think that that's a good point. But the also, I also think, and Michele is part of that, and when we're thinking about maybe saying goodbye to somebody, sometimes right now with layoffs, people are they have to meet a number, right? So some of those people that they're letting go are not all bad performers. Some of those are been dedicated employees in the past, and they hate to see them go. And matter of fact, they would love to see them come back someday. And so, in having this very difficult conversation with the people that may be leaving, where you have to say, goodbye to them. How can you do that in a positive way, to where they feel they understand the situation, they feel like, hey, the door is still open. When the company starts doing better, maybe perhaps I can come back. How do you make it a positive experience?
Wow, I mean, that experience in itself, that's a tough one. I always say the true measure of an organization is how they bring someone into the organization and how they separate with somebody. There is a respectful way to do it. And I think that it's as simple as remembering, how would you like to be treated? If this were you, if this was the situation that you were in, how would you like for someone to treat you? And it just has to be done with dignity and respect. I think it's very, very important to keep the lines of communication open. The more information you can share, the better. Anytime employees feel like something is being done in secrecy, or they're not being told what's really going on, that's going to cause a lot of haste. And those are the things you want to avoid. So it's best to be open, honest, in a situation like that, I don't think there's such a thing as over communicating. You need to be very transparent and open with employees about what's going on. And you need to be respectful as they part ways and go. And any support that you may be able to offer them in the way of, referring them to other people that you may know in the industry, providing them with leads, something as simple as allowing them to take the day off if you know that the layoffs are coming and people are going to be it's going to be communicated out, giving people that time to process all of that, and also allowing them time to seek employment somewhere else. If they need a day off, let them feel comfortable being open, saying, I understand that my job is ending on this day, but I have an interview coming up next week. Are you okay with me taking off for that? Allowing them that and not making them feel badly about it at all, supporting them and continuing to support their livelihood and take care of themselves. And again, referring them to the EAP if needed.
Yeah, this is where managers must take ownership and responsibility. It can't be, this wasn't my decision.
Oh.
It was my call, you'd still be here. Top management said blah, blah, blah. That's like the worst thing you can do. Even if you don't agree with it, you're part of a larger company, and you need to be, as you said, open and honest and explain the situation to the employee. You got to remember, they're people with lives, families.
Yeah. I agree with you wholeheartedly about that. Being open, being honest, and not saying, putting it off on somebody else, owning the message, owning the delivery, and not saying I'm doing this because HR said. And that HR said that just doesn't apply to layoffs. That's across the board. That's something that I always see from leaders. Instead of delivering the message from them as the leader, it's HR said.
Right.
That you shouldn't be delivering a message like that. As the leader, you represent HR. So yeah.
And the other challenge that I find here when we have conversations like this, Michele, is especially in a layoff kind of a context, if you're saying HR did that, or finance or some other department is responsible, if it were up to me, I'd still have you here. You're sending the wrong message to people who are still part of the organization, because now they believe that you don't really call the shots. This person has no control over my future. Why am I burning midnight oil working for them? Yeah. So might as well work for HR, or might as well start talking to whoever is in control, right?
Absolutely. I agree with that.
Another thing I think that where leaders fail and with layoffs and so forth is we don't realize the amount of power and opportunity that each one of us has as individuals. And so let me dive into that a little bit more. Often when we go into the layoff situation, we're often thinking, oh, I got to meet this number. The ship is sinking. We gotta bail out the water to stay afloat, right? And so companies are thinking that way, but they're the other thing that can help them is that, of course, when there's a layoff that's being done, it's a very negative experience for your people, and it's a very poor experience to experience or to give out to or to communicate to your candidates out there. You know, they nobody wants to work at a place where they have to worry about their job or getting cut in the future. So when we think about our resources as leaders, we should think about creating that positive experience by giving opportunities. We all, as businesses, we have partners. We have those that we do business with elsewhere that are either supplying information or processes to us, products or our vendors, or our customers that we're giving resources to. So that's a huge network of companies out there that can help our people that we're offboarding, right? So whether we know the jobs that we're getting rid of, and we know which one of those people that we would like to recommend to our partner organization. So I think that leaders should be taking the extra effort of thinking about where would these people be a good fit at other places that are, you know, maybe not going through layoffs, that are looking for this talent and reaching out to their partner network.
Absolutely. I agree with all that you said, Sam. I think that, you know, it all again goes back to the messaging and the transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Because without those, it won't come across as caring. And I think that it's important that employers show that they care about people. I don't think that that's prevalent enough. And I think we're slowly starting to move into a time where it's more acceptable to
Mm-hmm.
care about employees and to care about them as people and not just numbers.
Right. And so I know we've taken a little bit of departure from our main topic here as being a layoffs or something that's happening right now. It's creating a lot of difficult conversations between leaders and their employees. But I want to make sure that we go back to the topic of how really to heal the wounds between people and showing them that the organization does care and wants this to be a positive experience, and, you know, getting back on track. And so what I know that you had some points there, Michele. What is the next thing that we should be thinking about?
So when I was talking about, you know, focusing strictly on the behavior and the performance and not making it personal about the person, you also need to make sure you're prepared with specific examples, because employees are going to ask that, and you should be able to prepare to provide them with that. If you're telling me that I'm not meeting an expectation, give me an example of when I didn't meet it. Talk to me about what the deadline was, what the date was. Have all those things in line and prepared to share with the employee. And then once you have that, you want to invite the employee into the conversation, which again will make it less confrontational. And inviting the employee in is something as simple as saying or asking them, tell me how you see things. After you've laid out what the struggle is, what the challenge is, what the issue is, and what you need from the employee, and laid out that expectation, tell me how you see things. Or saying something as simple as, you know, what are your thoughts on the matter? You're inviting them and engaging them as part of the conversation, which again is also disarming for the employee. It breaks down that wall and it makes them feel like, okay, this person actually cares about what I think and is just not here to ream me on what I've been doing wrong. So you want to ask those questions that invite them in and make them feel like, okay, I'm heard here. This person hears me, this person cares about me. And this is also another an opportunity to ask them, you know, is there something personal going on? You know, whenever leaders come to me to talk to me about, you know, challenges that they're having with employees, one of the first questions that I always ask is, tell me what's been going on with this person on a personal level outside of work, if they know. Sometimes employees don't share, but sometimes they do. And that's one of the first questions. And, often I'll hear, oh, they're the last time I asked this question, they said that they split from their spouse. And they haven't been the same since. Well, that explains, part of what's going on. Now, that's not to say that we use those as excuses for them not to meet performance standards, but it gives us some insight into what's going on and what their struggles are. So we can help them work through not only the personal, but also the professional, and keep those things in mind. And again, making available those resources and referring them to those resources that can help them with those personal challenges that are spilling over into their work.
A lot of times when a leader or a manager has a difficult conversation with one of their staff members, that staff member said, might be thinking, yeah, okay, yeah, I did really mess up here. And they get kind of down on themselves, and sometimes that spirals out of control and they feel like they have to leave the organization. So how should managers follow back up to help people understand that there is a path to success and get back on track?
I'm glad you asked that. That's actually one of the final steps in the toolkit that I'm going through. Is you want to repeat what you heard the employee say, state what your expectations are, and then you want to follow up with the employee. And following up means checking in with them, saying, hey, I just, since we last met, last Thursday or whatever, I just wanted to check in to see how things are going. If there's something that they do very well, make sure you mention that too. Your interactions with your employees shouldn't all be about what they haven't done or what they're not meeting. Praise them throughout. And I've heard this from several employees. I feel like the only time they want to talk to me is when something is wrong. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Inviting them for a cup of coffee shouldn't only be when you want to talk about their performance. So you need to make sure that you're being active and engaging with the employee on a regular basis and asking them questions and seeing how they're doing. And make sure you emphasize during that conversation that this is not about me beating you up, and I surely don't want you to beat yourself up. Keep it solution focused. This is a conversation where I'm looking for solutions. I'm trying to figure out how I can best support you. Tell me what it is you need so I can help you meet the goal of getting that report to me monthly on time. What can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? So I think that, again, emphasizing the importance that this is a solution-focused conversation, and I want you to be part of that solution, and I'm here to support you.
Michele, we actually do have a question because that kind of ties into what we're talking about. If the employee is still non-receptive to maybe all those solutions you just mentioned, are there some other strategies that a leader could implement? Because she's saying that she gets this question a lot from leaders, like the employee's non-receptive and they just don't have any strategies to get through that.
Well, the hope is, of course, that you can have that conversation, like I was just saying, and tell them, stating what your intentions are up front. And letting and reassuring them, this is not about being punitive. This is about me supporting you and helping, us as an organization move forward and find a solution. But if the employee is not receptive to any of that and they continue to, if they shut down, or because that does happen sometimes and they're not receptive to what you're saying, then my recommendation would probably at that point be to reach out to HR. Because you have to get some support at that point, and you have to figure out another strategy. The end solution, hopefully, for any HR professional is to start the corrective action or disciplinary process. But in order to avoid that, you want to, like I said, it's building those connections so the person doesn't shut down. If you've built the connection and you've had those conversations with them, and you actually engage with the person and the employee on a regular basis, the chances of them shutting down when you have that conversation are going to be slim and none. However, if they do, at that point, I would recommend you reach out to your HR department for additional support.
Yeah, we've been talking about situations where we have maybe a person that's disengaged, maybe having a performance issue and so forth. But sometimes you might have two high performers that are on a team and they're having a conflict with one another. and that's impacting the work and perhaps other types of standards. So how is this situation different, and how do we handle it, Michele?
Yeah. To me, that would be a perfect situation where you would want to do mediation. Sometimes, you know, I always encourage employees to try to work things out themselves by having, you know, professional conversations with people. I think that 99.9% of issues can be resolved with authentic and genuine and real conversations. However, I understand that that doesn't always work with everybody. So you have to be prepared to, again, reach out to an HR professional and and see if you can get some mediation, because a lot of times mediation will you know help kind of break down, and having a neutral party there, somebody who is not within the department, so both people feel like they can state their case, if you will help the situation. And having somebody there who can give advice and give some direction as to how to resolve the matter, who doesn't work in the department, because sometimes people will feel like, like I report to this is my supervisor, but this person has been here longer, so they're going to be more loyal to them. But it's the job of the HR professional to say, I'm here as a mediator, I'm neutral, and my only job here is to find a solution to this problem.
Now, and also in another situation, that we're dealing with now across the globe is that companies have opened up their doors to bring in a whole host of different types of people, diversity and inclusion, people from other cultures around the world and so forth. And so it's causing a lot of minds to expand in this space. And one of the problems that some companies are facing is that they don't understand other cultures and so forth, and they often think negatively as a result. So for instance, how do we help our people better understand cultural differences and think the best of people? For instance, there might be, why does that person always not have they always don't have their camera on Zoom, or why do I always hear noise in the background? Or they have these different types of judgments, whatever they may be. So how do we improve employee relations overall and in setting up people for success?
That's a good question, Sam. I think it goes back to being the type of organization that you want your employees to be. So if you want your employees to be receptive and open of different cultures and backgrounds, then the company, the face of the company has to be the same way. You have to be, show that through your recruiting processes that you're reaching out to people of different ethnicities, backgrounds, that you're going to colleges and to recruit people from, for example, HBCUs. If you're trying to diversify your staff, going to those places where you want those people. If you're reaching out to, for example, if you want to diversify the staff, going to the places and looking for those people to attract them to your organization. So basically being the face of the organization that you want your employees to demonstrate, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, no, thank you so much, Michele. I mean, this has been a great conversation. I just want to take a quick break here just to acknowledge our speaker for next week. We have Steve Van Remortel that is going to be coming in and talking about talent planning for success in 2023 and do some deep dives into different parts of talent planning that I think that our listeners will really enjoy, and how to set up their organization for success there. So come see us next week on People Strategy Forum to listen to Steve. All right. Before we kind of wrap up here, Michele, I mean, I'd love to, do you have, for people that have questions out there, I mean, how can they get a hold of you? I mean, do you have some workshops or things like that where they can learn more? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me at, if you want to email me directly, that would be michele@indalaconsulting.com for my consulting services. And then my website is www.indalaconsulting.com. I will also be featured on a podcast on Saturday, March 11th at 11 a.m. It's called The Dig, D-I-G-G, The Dig podcast. And that will be with Demetrius Colbert. We'll be talking more about my coaching journey. So please listen in, and we're going to be talking more about coaching and providing you with some more tools to help you coach to success.
Exciting. Well, thank you so much for really taking us through this important topic and in a time where a lot of companies really need this advice. So thank you so much, Michele.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And we've had a lot of, I know, because I said, don't look at the chat, just focus on what you're doing, Michele. But just so you know that this has been a very active chat session. I've been like typing away this whole time. It's a lot of good feedback. People are loving it. People are like, yes, and agreeing with a lot of stuff. So I know you've definitely made a big impact today. And I've dropped all the links to Michele. So if you want to get in touch with her, the website's there, the email's there, the podcast is there. So you have all the resources, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I saw the comments coming into the chat, and I wanted to look at them, but I was like, if I do that, I'm going to lose track of what's going on here.
I know how it is. Like when I host, I'm like, oh, like going back and forth, it's a lot. So sometimes lose your train of thought, but it's been really positive. So all good stuff.
Awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And see you next week on the People Strategy Forum. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.